Welcome back to the Self-Trust Solution Podcast. I am your host, Dawn Leday, the Self-Trust Coach. And today I'm joined by Tara Campbell. She's a former COO turned founder who now helps others rewrite the stories that have been quietly shaping their lives and decisions. What I'm especially excited to explore today in this conversation is the season that completely reshaped Tara's relationship with herself, navigating major upheaval in both her career and her 20-year marriage at the same time. And through that process, discovering that self-trust wasn't just about mindset, it was about telling the truth. Tara, I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
So take us back to this last year or the season that you kind of described where you had to confront the depth of yourself.
So it was about a year ago is when it started last spring. And it started for me in physical symptoms. I was finding myself in the middle of the day, or like even just in the morning at my desk at work, having what I would describe as mild panic attacks. Like I would just be sitting at my desk and all of a sudden it would feel like I was standing on the edge of a cliff and my heart would be racing and I would be a little sweaty and I would just want to like lay down. But I don't understand what's happening. And I had had panic attacks in the past during other seasons. So I recognized them and I was able to calm myself. But that's how it started for me. And it wasn't that I wasn't having external issues, right? My marriage was suffering. We were having some trouble. My career was just starting to change. I could feel some shifts and some things that I needed to look at. But the way it really got my attention was through those physical symptoms, like through that just random panic moments.
Yeah, you said something really striking that there was this complete discrepancy between your internal world and your external experience. What did that look like in real time?
Yes, so that was a year ago when that happened. The year prior to that, my internal world and my external world were in upheaval in a ways like I just knew I wanted something different. I knew that something in my life was not going the way I wanted, but I wasn't sure what it was that I wanted to look like. And so I had started doing a lot of work on myself. I've been in therapy off and on for years and years. So therapy was already a part of my journey. I've been in recovery for 25 years. And so like doing recovery work and, personal inventory has always been a part of my story. And so the year before the panic attacks started, I had really started to dig in and refresh some of the work I was doing internally. I was meditating daily. I was taking care of my physical health. I was doing that personal inventory on a regular basis. I was having regular check-ins with therapists and sponsors. And so I'd put in a good year's worth of work in my internal world, and really could see the difference, right? But as my internal world was improving and I was feeling more close to my decisions and feeling really good about my intuition, but my external world was the same, right? Marriage, not great, still the same. Career, shifting, not really going the same direction I expected it to. I think that is what really made the physical symptoms start to show up because the disconnect was so wide. It was like, I feel great inside. I feel good about me, but I'm still navigating this external world that's not agreeing with where I'm landing internally. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And it's so interesting because often it can be the other way, right? Like everything looks good from the outside and internally it's like you feel like you are completely losing control and out of sync. And so this is such a powerful example of how that can absolutely be flipped as well. Where you could start to do that work and really feel good about yourself and your external. Now, what did you think about that now? The external was not matching up. Was that a threat to the internal work you had done?
That's a great question. Yeah. Yes, it was. And when I look back on the woman that was doing that work in a season where I can remember moments thinking, if I keep doing this work on myself and really putting myself first, I'm probably going to lose a lot of things that are a big part of my life. And I can remember coming to points where I was like, I can't stop doing this work. And so there was some fear there, and there was some concern and, like, what's going to happen. And I mean, it's not the first time in my life that I've done that. I mean, obviously I shared about like my recovery and some other things, but it's one of the big ones. I think we all have some moments in our life that are like the before and the after. And this was that, where I knew the work I was doing for myself and putting myself first and choosing my internal peace over everything else was going to mean that my life was probably going to be pretty different in the near future. And, looking back on her and the version of me that was doing that, I'm just so proud. I'm so grateful that she was able to be brave like that.
What did it take to be able to do that?
It took a lot of support. I'm very blessed to have some really incredible people in my life. And I think also I really believe in timing. I don't think I could have done that any sooner than I did it. And if I look back over some various seasons in the last 5-8 years, I'm constantly doing a little bit of that, but this was a really big shed. And I don't think I could have done that shed before it happened. And, one of the things that I think contributes to it is 3 years ago, I was married. We relocated across the country for a job for me. And I think that was such a key because it pulled me out of an environment I'd been in for my whole life. I'd moved from a city I'd lived in my entire life, basically a state I'd lived in my entire life, to a brand new environment. And I'd committed to be very intentional about not just like hunkering down. I really wanted to like stretch and expand. And I feel like once I made that decision, I just couldn't go back. I just couldn't unwind it.
Like you were woken up out of just the status quo, just kind of keeping going. What is that saying? Or going, keep going, or going to go? Yeah.
Yeah. It was, and I don't know if I would have had I don't know if energy is the right word, the motivation to expand if I hadn't extricated myself from my environment and put myself in a position where I kind of had to expand or just wilt away in a new environment, and I'm so grateful for having the experience and the opportunity to do that, because I think it has led to this new version of me that I'm super into and proud of. And, with that kind of expansion, there's been a lot of loss. And so it's a complex navigating of things. But yeah, and again, I just think there's been a lot of things that have led me to get here, and a lot of them have been out of my control. It's just been fully the universe being like, we'll set the stage if you're willing to show up. And I guess for me, if the universe was willing to set a stage for me that felt that good and looked that good, I was willing to show up.
So tell us what that stage was. You mentioned the shedding. What was the shedding?
Well, it started, like I said, with the relocation, which was a big move for me, a big shift for me. And then I think, without getting too much into the other side of my marriage and just keeping it focused on me, it also just highlighted some big differences in the relationship.
The shedding is like closing marriage.
Like shedding the relationship.
Got it.
And also, like, now that you say that, it also required me, because I guess that really is just like the external losses of what my life looks different on the outside. But internally, the shedding was really about picking up and looking at old ideas that I had about what it was supposed to look like, how it was supposed to feel. Where did that idea come from? Is it still true? If it's not true, what's the new idea? And so I guess in that way, the shedding that's been the internal work, right? And I had to do a lot of that. I had to do a lot of examining of like why I was making the choices I was making, what I believed about myself, what I believed about success. Where did that come from? Does it even belong to me? I had to do a lot of that.
Yeah, looking at what is current. So often
Mhm.
we keep operating by rules that
Yeah.
have either been given to us or we adopted them or we created them and they served a purpose, whether good, bad, that they served a purpose at some
Yeah.
point. And if we never look at them, we continue to operate from it. Sounds like you got introspective on that to see what does still work. What do I believe still? What do I no longer believe? And what needs to be adjusted?
Like I I was so surprised at some of the things that came up. I'm still surprised today. Like even as far down the road as I am on this, I've had recent stuff come up where I'm like, That's interesting. Is that true? I don't think it is. If it's not true, what is true?"
So when you made that decision to leave your marriage was kind of the external big, there's a lot of internal work going on. What changed for you immediately?
Oh, panic attack stops immediately.
Really?
Like, yeah, and I know, this was a little bit in my intake form, but I what I realized about the panic that I was having, and it took me a minute. It probably took me about 30, 45 days because I was trying everything else. I was like, I'm working out, I'm taking like supplements, I'm like cutting back on caffeine. Like, I'm just like, the panic has to stop. I feel like I'm going to drown. Right. And what I realized, and I don't remember the exact moment, but I remember maybe like February, March, I was not saying, there were things I was not saying out loud. And
Hmm.
I was just swallowing them down, primarily out of like fear of hurting somebody, fear of saying it and then not being able to take it back. And then it's just out there, like there's just some fear there about if I say it out loud, it's real. And there was a moment in March where I finally just said out loud, like, this version of this is not working for me. And if we're going to continue to work on it, like, I just need to say out loud that I can't do this version anymore. And the minute I said it out loud, it was just clear and said what was on my heart and how I really felt in the moment. It was like a blanket settled over me. And that didn't end the panic attacks right away, but it definitely lessened them. And I felt lighter and I felt like, okay, I said the hard thing. Nobody died. What if I just started to practice saying the hard things? What if I just really started to practice telling the truth in all the things? And not in I think in the past, I played with versions of that where I get really aggressive with it. Like, I'm going to stand up for myself. I'm going to always tell the truth. And that was not what I was going for. And then, the shutdown version where I'm just like never going to speak my truth. And so what was the balance around it might be messy, it might be imperfect, I might even change my mind, but in this moment, this is how I feel, and this is what's true for me. And I just really was like, that felt so good. I was like, what if I just practiced that more?
Yeah. What did that teach you about maybe self-abandonment versus self-honoring? Because
Yeah.
you're right, there is the tendency to say either I'm shutting down or not speaking my truth, and that is self-abandonment. But we don't have to go to the part where we're just saying things.
Like just machete out in the world.
Yeah. Yeah. So I like the idea of it being the way what you just described sound more like self-honoring. You're being truthful, but in a way that aligns with you.
Yeah. That also, I mean, I think I got to that point because of some of the work I'd been doing. And a lot of the work I'd been doing had been about the way I talk to myself internally and how I would sort of in a critical parent way, like if things came up, I would be like, oh my God, that's silly. We're not going to say that. Or, oh my God, you want that, but you can't have that. Like that was my internal dialogue before some of the recovery I'd been doing. And so coming out of that last year and then being able to speak more nicely to myself internally. So that me doing that was honoring myself and it felt so good internally and did show. And that's the self-trust because now those parts of me that have been trying to speak and I haven't been letting them because I'm judgmental or in fear or I have limiting beliefs about what I'm allowed to ask for. When I said my truth, that was like me honoring those parts of myself so that they could trust. And I feel like when I start having this conversation, I swear it's not like multiple personalities, but you know what I mean? There's parts, right? And so it was like me saying to those parts of myself, like, you can trust me to show up for you and speak your truth and honor what you need, even if it's messy. And so, what I really learned about that for me was that practice built that trust. And so the more I did it, the better I got at it and the more comfortable I got.
Yeah. Because you made the decision
Yeah.
to do it. Yeah.
Yeah.
It makes a big difference. That is the work that I do so often. Is the book that I wrote, right?
Yeah.
I love that because it is the difference between being this divisive, turning our parts of ourselves into these like different personalities that are judge and critic. I'm so against that. Said it very verbally a lot. And because
Yeah.
it's just more divisive, it actually creates more separation. And what we need is a united front to everything we have to face in this world, good, bad, ugly. And so if we're not fractured, if we're unified and on our own side, so it takes just relating to it. Yeah, I got you. In a very
Yes.
good way. And it doesn't there's no thought that can come into my mind that is a problem. Even if it sounds terrible. Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah. Yeah.
Let's
There's
talk
just
about
more.
that.
There's just more of like, I think what I've really learned from it is there's so much more power in the curiosity, right? You're just like, who's got that on their mind? Where is that coming from? Like, what what is it that we need right now that would help with whatever that is coming up? If we can, my reframing it to a curiosity really made a difference.
Yeah, it's like what does relationship look like here when something shows up? That's it. What
Yeah.
does relationship look like? I invite you to look at it 2 ways always. It's either an invitation to affirm yourself. I like to think of it as it's just that devil's advocate and really calling you to affirm yourself. Like it's saying this absurdly sounds mean thing just to remind you you are not that, or you are further, or that's not who you are. Or it's an invitation to see a different perspective. Ooh, what's going on here? What are we trying to hold ourselves back from or protect ourselves from? Or just something needs a tweak to make this feel a little more aligned. Yeah. So I love that. You, at the same time that you're navigating this, you're also navigating some major career questions.
Yes.
Tell us about that.
Yeah. At the same time that was going on, there were some changes happening in my place of work at the time. And it was a time where I'm like, okay, is this where I want to be long term? And if it is, then we need to navigate how we're going to do this. Or if it isn't, then what is long term for me? And I think in the past, I would just be like, okay, well, let me just go get another job. I'll start looking.
Yeah.
And I had this moment where I was like, I could do that. Or I've had this idea in my mind for a handful of years now about doing this on my own in a way that allows me to, really affect even bigger change and help more people, which is what I want to do. And so I started to just have some conversations with a few people about this idea around that time. And it's a big shift for me. I am a serial corporate girl. And if you'd asked me, even when I had this idea 8 years ago, I was like, oh, that'll be my retirement plan. I'm a great number two. I am really good inside a structure and with a team, and that's where I'm at. I'm not an entrepreneur. It's not who I am. That was an old story that I had about myself. And so as I was going through this and navigating this, I had to kind of pick that up and go, is that true? Could it be different? And I started to have some loose conversations at the same time, but my marriage ended up ending around that time. And so I kind of put the career thing on hold for a little while we navigated all of that. But it was still kind of running in the background. And I was still picking it up from time to time and just turning it around and like making a couple of steps that direction. But then when everything finalized with my divorce, it came roaring back like in a big way. Like, uh, just a lot of change started to happen at my place of employment. And so I was like, okay, I guess I'm not getting a break. We're going right from one to we're in it. And so I just get really serious about building something for myself. And it started to take shape and form. And I just got really excited about it.
Yeah. So what came up for you when you made that decision?
Yeah. The old story is there was just a lot of old stories about worth and value. And I think if there's like one umbrella that runs over everything that I was doing for my internal work over the last couple of years has been around external validation and how much value I I derive from other people's opinion of me. Both directions, right? Like if somebody said something that sounded even slightly like I'd made a mistake or I didn't know something or I wasn't the best fit for something, it would just gut me and I would just like work harder to prove them wrong. Or I would notice like when people were really complimentary of me or, held me up in high regard or high esteem, like I would just put a lot of my value on that. And I think, going back to the conversation we started about the disconnect in my internal world, I cannot say world today, my internal world versus my external world was I had done all this work, but I was still in the external validation and it wasn't hitting the same. Like it's almost like when the candy stops working, you're like, like I'm addicted to Kit Kats or whatever. And then one day you're like, these taste terrible. So it's like, I was still going out and trying to go get that validation, but it wasn't doing anything for me. I'm like, this isn't landing like it used to land. I'm like, oh, I might have to figure out how to do this for myself if I really want to make a difference and be, have a change here. So I think that was like the biggest thing that came up, but it came up in a lot of ways, like value and worth around going out on my own. I would tell people about what I was working on and like, depending on their reaction, it would I would feel myself shift. Like maybe it's not a good idea. Little things like that. But if I was pinpointing like one big umbrella, that was the thing. Was like, how do I shift internally and stop looking externally?
It's what I call conditional trust, right? And it's very, very common for high achievers. We see it a lot when people leave careers, whether to retire or to start a business of their own. When you have been successful and you've created a lot of wins in your life, at some point you start giving credit to the wins and not the win maker. And so when those aren't there any longer, it creates this identity gap because the causality has shifted for you. What did you do to make that shift?
A solo work in progress. I've done a lot of things. I mean, one thing I did was I found a woman who's been coaching me through it. And so having a sounding board, like somebody to go say all that stuff to and have her come back and she did, and she's worked really well for me because I don't necessarily believe if you just tell me. Like if I go, I think I'm terrible, and you go, no, you're not, that doesn't work. So she was a really good mirror for me where she would just like, tell me more about your career. Tell me more about some of the projects you work on. Tell me more about how that felt or what that looks like. And as she would take me through my own story, that did work. That helped me. And so then when I was on my own and would have things come up, I would be like, wait a minute, remember we just talked about this. Like you've got this on board. And it created a loop internally that I could do that for myself, which is really helpful. So I think like number one, I've been very blessed, like I said, to have amazing mirrors in my life. And I also stopped sharing with people that didn't mirror energy back that I wanted. I got a little delusional about I'm only talking to people who are hyping me up and I delusional hype people only. That's what I want. So, and it wasn't like I cut friends out or anything. I just didn't talk to them about this, right? Like I was just like, this isn't for them. This is for the people who are like cheerleading on the side. Hell yeah, you got this. No worries, right? So I did do some culling in that way. And I've also revisited just some of those old stories that I was talking about, right? In depth, like, okay, like you're a good number two. And then, I'd pick it up and I'd be like, is that true? Like, it is true, but does it fill me up? Is there more to this story? What would it look like to do it for myself and to be in charge of my own destiny? And then really spend some time like writing about that, asking myself questions. And I try to focus more on, to your point, I would be so focused on the goals, the milestones, and then the I guess, physical external goals that as I was building this business and as I was like building what I wanted it to look like, I was really focused on what I wanted my life to look like, what I wanted my day to feel like, as opposed to like, well, I'm going to hit these targets with this. It was much more like, I want to be able to have slow mornings where I like get up, I get my exercise in, I get my journaling done, drink my tea on outside in the backyard. I want to be able to travel. I want to feel like I'm helping people in a bigger way. And that was foreign for me. I have always been like what are the numbers we're going to hit? How many targets do we get there? That's always been my focus. And so shifting into the feeling and the purpose of it has been very good for me. Unusual, but good.
Is there not a place for the numbers and the...
There is. It's just not how I've been leading it, I guess. Because you do have to have a roadmap. You can't build a business and not have plan, of course. But instead of starting there, it started with, how do I want this to look? How do I want it to feel? And then what would that look like?
Yeah, it brings up a good point, because putting your value in your result is different than reaching for results.
Yes.
From a high value, a knowledge of your high value. It doesn't mean that you don't reach for amazing, incredible results. In fact, that is the most stable, scalable way to do it. That's why we talk about the causality the way we do at the Self-Trust Coach, because if you have a clear view of yourself, where your results are going, and you have that firm self-trust, the expression of that gets you to those results.
Yeah, like as you're talking, I'm like, the truth is, I know I'm going to get results. Like that's I've gotten plenty of evidence that proves that I can get things done. All the evidence I need that like I'm going to be fine. But definitely like I've needed to come from a deeper sense of value of myself.
Yeah, it's so good. I love that, because I really want people out there to hear that it's not that you become less ambitious. In some ways you become more. It's just because you can. Yeah, because you're not like constantly tying your worth and your experience, like to the result. The results are inevitable. It's the way I look at it.
I agree. Yeah.
Now I'm just figuring out what it takes to get there from a highly aligned, self-trust fueled, identity. Yeah, love that. Yeah, so you also talked about timing. Like, I love you mentioned a quote that said it took exactly the time it had to, I think. Tell us about that.
The reason that becomes so important to me is because in the past, and she's not there anymore. I don't hear this voice very often, but there have been moments in the past where, as things would happen or I would learn some lessons, I would have some version of myself that would lament or regret that I didn't figure it out faster, or that I didn't do it sooner, or that I'd wasted time of some sort. Like I should have done this 2 years ago. And I'm this version, like this story that has come through and unfolded over the last couple of years, I have every 100% convinced that it happened exactly the way it had to, the exact time that it had to. Like, I couldn't have even made these decisions before I was this version of myself. Like, I couldn't have even gotten to this before I did what I had to do, a year ago, 2 years ago. And I can see versions of myself in the past where the time was tough. Going back to striving, right? Going back to putting value in results. And when the results don't come right away, like really being stressed and creating a lot of friction in the waiting. And what I've learned in this season is like, it's all on purpose. I need every minute of that wait to get to what's coming. And I just put my full faith in it's all coming. And if that's true, then there's no reason to stress the time it takes because for whatever reason, I need every minute of this to be ready for that. And
Yeah.
I feel really confident about that today, much more than I've ever felt in my life.
So good. Yeah, because then each piece, each bump, each misstep, wrong turn becomes the directional point to the next decision. It's so
Yeah.
useful. It's what
Yeah.
makes your success so yours.
Yes. Earned it. Like that's the success I want to earn. Not the accolades I mean, I do want to earn money, God knows, but it's like I'm so much more proud that I earned this version of myself right now. That this every minute that went into this version of me that's sitting in this chair right this minute is like precious and amazing.
And the money is going to be an expression of that.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So for someone listening who knows something in their life is no longer aligned, but feels terrified of what honesty might require, what
Yeah.
they might lose in the process, what would you want them to know?
I mean, first and foremost, I would want them to know that whatever it is going to be okay. Like it's all going to be okay, however it shakes out. And I also want them to know that I wouldn't recommend that they try to push through that alone. I think that especially in the big things where we're having huge disconnects in our worlds, internal, external, whatever it is so important to have somebody in your life that can mirror that to you and be support. Because if it's going to be a big change, you're going to need that support. You're going to need those mirrors. It's not an easy ask. And whether that's a therapist or, just friends, I just hope that anybody that's feeling the way I was feeling a year ago has support in their life and really leans on that and trusts in that because it was super helpful for me and it kept me sane and calm to have people I could call in those moments. And the last thing I'll say is it's so much better. And like we said, I can't convince anybody, right? I can only share what's been true for me and what's been true for other people I know and say, I can't, everybody has to experience it for themselves, but I can tell you that it's so much better on this side of it. And that you'll be shocked if you just try it with one thing, how easy it gets to do it with everything. And so if you have a big thing, start with the small stuff. Just start telling the truth to your friends. Just start saying the thing out loud in the low stakes environments and just practice it. And then when it's time, you'll have that on board to be able to do it for whatever the big thing is.
Yeah.
And then, I'm rooting for you.
Awesome. Yeah, I think to add to that, start with being really honest with yourself and make it such a safe space that you're not wrong for whatever comes out.
Yes.
You don't have to act on it immediately.
Yeah.
Make it a safe space to tell yourself the truth and then do get a trusted advisor. I would actually say not. I mean, if you have a friend who's going to be objective, amazing.
Yes.
In these big transitions, when you are managing a truth with yourself, if you've been self-abandoning, there is cost, right? And just like Tara shared. So having someone that's going to see through the fear and the doubt to help you get to your truth is also a great space to go to.
Yeah.
And then finally, I would add too that there are costs, but never forget to look at all the gains. Sometimes we forget to look at that, and the gains are so beautiful. Oftentimes, you're going to be willing to lose or to pay the cost in order to get the gain.
Yeah. I agree with that.
Yeah. So tell us a little bit about the business that you're building now and what you're most excited about.
Thanks. Yeah. I'm building, but called Tangent Advisory. And I have been in operations for 26 years, just managing large teams and billion-dollar banks. And I want to go do that for business owners. So I've always worked with business owners in my job, and I want to be able to really afford or not afford. I really want to be able to help support them as they're building their businesses. Because I've been in that space a long time, I see them struggling with, like inflection points. I see them struggling with what to do next, how to scale their business, make it bigger. And I really look forward to being able to, expand that support to them. I love to talk people through what they're keeping them up at night and just show them how easy it is to solve that problem. I love to be that for people. So I'm excited to do it in a bigger way.
Yeah. So kind of goes back to that. You're a really great number two.
I am a great number two, and now I'm going to do it for a lot more people. I'm excited.
Right?
Yeah.
I know. It's so funny. At first, it's like we have to get rid of that thought. Is that true? It's just applied differently now.
Yes. Yes.
Your company, you're the number one company to be your clients the best number two.
I'm stealing that tagline. That's mine. I'm going to put it on my website.
Got it. All right. So where can people connect with you and follow your work?
Sure, thank you. So on Instagram, it's at Tangent Advisory. I'm also launching a podcast pretty soon, and that Instagram handle is at What I Make Up About That. So that'll be coming in the next 30 days. And tangentadvisoryllc.com is the website. So you can go find the business there. And then just personally on Instagram, you can find me at Tatstar, TATSTAR.
Awesome. We're going to include all of Tara's links in the show notes. Tara, this conversation is such a powerful reminder that self-trust isn't always loud or dramatic. Sometimes it begins with just quietly telling yourself the truth. I love that so much. And first of all, to yourself, right? And I think what stands out most is how much clarity and relief became available to you once you stopped overriding your own experience. So thank you so much for being here and sharing with us.
Thank you for having me.
If today's conversation stirred something in you, I want you to take one next step before you close this episode. Go take the self-trust identity map. Before strategy, before motivation, before more effort, you need to know where your identity is operating from, because that is what determines everything that follows. It's free. It takes about 3 minutes, and it will give you a precise read on where you're operating from right now and exactly where to focus next. The link is in the show notes. If you're a coach or expert who already knows what's in the way, you're done operating from almost and ready to claim the authority that actually moves your business forward. Claimed as my private 6-month coaching container for exactly that. That link is in the show notes as well. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss what's coming. These stories are just getting better. I'll see you next time.